Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. The Prestige Classic is back, the Prestige Classic 2.0. The big question is, does it play like the original? You might know the original, or you might have heard of it. Marat Safin, Goran Ivanisevic, it's a legendary frame and it has that beautiful feel, and it's one of the most iconic head frames of all time with the Head Pro Tour 630. And they did release the Head Pro Tour 2.0 before, and now they have the Classic 2.0. And the Head Pro Tour 2.0, it was a very good frame, had the same mold, but the feeling was a little bit stiffer than the iconic PT57A or Head Pro Tour 630 or 280 in the US. This one feels much more similar to the original, which is a great thing. And I did string it up with Velocity MLT, a great multi-filament string, perhaps my favorite, 130 gauge. And if you want more spin, you might want to add a hybrid or something if you're going to actually play with this. But it does play amazingly well. It's buttery with this string setup. It's just a beautiful racket in many ways. It's very demanding when you're on defense, but when you're attacking, you can actually play with a 90 square inch racket still. This is 89.5. In the specifications, which you see on the screen, it says 93. Head used to measure it the other way around. They used to measure the outside and not the inside of the racket. So it seemed like the rackets are bigger than they actually are. They changed that after graphene. So when graphene was introduced, they started measuring it like the other brands, which I think is good. So now a 95 is a 95. But before they used to write 98 and it was actually a 95. And so on. So this is listed as 93, but it's actually a 89.5 square inch racket. So it's a small racket head size. It's not for the modern game of tennis. It's gonna punish you. It doesn't have a huge sweet spot, but it has more spin potential than you might imagine. It's so easy to get the racket to really whip around and get some really good racket head speed with the head size. So that's something that's a little bit underestimated among racket nerds. I think that this smaller head sizes actually gives you access to a lot of racket head speed because you can whip around the racket a bit faster than a 100 square inch racket, which is kind of the norm today. And the feeling is very similar to the new one. I didn't really sense any difference. I played them side by side with my buddy Steven, as you can see in the video, and I just love playing with this racket. It's just one of those icons for a reason, like the Pro Staff 85 from Wilson and the Head Pro Tour and a bunch of other classics, but this one deserves to be called Classic. And it's just a beautiful frame still. Great on slice, touch, drop shots. You're not gonna get a lot of power, you're not gonna get a lot of spin, but more spin than you might think for the small head size. And I'm gonna play it with a hybrid setup at some point and try that as well. But I can already say, if you're into classic frames, if you love old school rackets, you need to kind of get this one. It sounds hyperbolic in a way, but it's just like one of those frames that makes you smile when you play with it. So if that's your thing, if you really like tennis rackets, I think you should have one to put on the wall. Price point is higher than the Head Pro Tour 2.0. I don't know what to think about that. It's a shame that it's higher. I think maybe it's inflation, whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's better materials, I don't know. But I do think that it was better that the price point was lower on that one, so people actually could try that iconic frame without spending too much. So, but yeah, beautiful frame as well. And just the design gives you kind of a feeling of nostalgia in a way, but it's also just nice to look at. So 2 thumbs up. I love that this racket is back. I've been asking for these old school rackets for so many years, since I started Tennis Nerd, like 2011, and started writing about tennis gear. And I've always been a fan of classic frames, and you know, I feel like when I play with them, I can see why. Although for my own game, sometimes it's easier to play with these modern frames. But for training, practice, getting that sweet spot in, or just a fun hit, why not bring out the Prestige Classic 2.0, which is as good in my opinion as the 600. Let me know, you racket purists out there, if you've tried both, the old one and this one, if you feel any difference. I did not. I feel they're very similar, and I love them both. So let me know in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.